5.3 review. All right. Can you prove side, side, side? But these two triangles are congruent. Hopefully you're good at this by now. So A, B, C, and D. Can you prove side, angle, side? That's what it wants to know. So, side, angle, side. The angle has to be made by the two sides. Well, first of all, you have reflexive. BD is reflexive in BD of the other triangle, okay? So we know that that's congruent to itself. And what we have here is we have a side, and an angle. But the angle is not attached to both of the two sides, and it has to be. Okay? So think of it this way. The angle has to be attached, oops, I did that all bad, sorry. Has to be attached to both sides. Side, angle, side. Here's your angle. So this side and this side is what that's attached to, but you don't have AB. So no, you can't prove that this is side, angle, side. So, not enough information. Right. Next picture. Same thing. Oops, let's do black. I can't see on the screen there. And this one, and this one. So F, E, G, and H. So everybody decide if there's enough for side, angle, side, and write it down. So here's your angle. It's attached to FH and GH. Okay, well, we see GH and FE are the same. And we do know reflexive property, FH is congruent to itself, so that could be marked. So yes, we have side, angle, side. The angle is attached to the two sides that are congruent to the other two sides of the triangle. So that would be yes. Okay, so on the quiz, typically we just give you that, and we say, hey, can you prove that those two triangles are congruent? And you'd say, yeah, side, angle, side. And if the middle part's not marked, then you would say FH is congruent to HF, reflexive. Boom, done. All right, and you'd have to say the SAS part. Okay, side, angle, side, because you have a reflexive piece in there. That's all you need to say. All right, next. Can you prove they are? Okay. All right, so they are in the correct order. How do you prove that they are congruent or are not? Is there enough information, first of all? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, how? How are you going to prove it?
Hypotenuse leg.
Hypotenuse leg. So you have the hypotenuse, which is opposite your 90 degree, and then you have one of the legs. Okay, so it's 90 degrees. You have that, so yes. And so you just say hypotenuse leg. You don't even have to say yes. If you say hypotenuse leg, that means you're saying that's what it is. All right, next. All right, so there's your picture. Are they congruent? If so, how? Here's the order. In general, if they didn't give you the order, then you would say yes, side, side, side. Okay? But if they give you the order here, watch what happens. We're going from R to S to T. We're going across the double and then across the single. If that's the case, then the other order ought to be P to Q to T. But that's not what you have. You have TQP. It goes the other direction. So in the book, they actually say no, which is ridiculous. The two triangles are congruent by side, side, side. But if they give you the order, you have to check the order. And if the order doesn't match, you cannot say that. Okay? All right, let's move on. Okay, so now take a look at that. Are they congruent? If they are, say how. Yeah, you have angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. Okay? So how you read the order is based on what has been marked. You're skipping this side right here, QR and AB, but it's not marked, so you don't say it. Okay? You don't want to say angle, side, angle, because you're missing the point here. If it was angle, side, angle, remember the side has to be between the two angles. So if you said angle, side, angle, this side doesn't connect the two angles. This side would have to be marked if it was angle, side, angle. So you go angle, angle, side. All right. So angle, angle, side. Awesome. Thank you. Move on. All right, so those are supposed to look identical. I just drew them fast. Now you mark whether you think they are the same. If they are the same, then you tell me why. You cannot prove it. This is angle, side, side, which we can't use. You can only use that if it's hypotenuse leg, and you do not have a 90-degree angle as far as you know. Okay? If this was 90 degrees here, then yeah, you'd have the hypotenuse and the leg, but you can't prove that that's 90 degrees. Okay? So let's go to the next one. Here's your information. Angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle C is congruent to angle F. And AC is congruent to DF. So you draw two generic triangles, mark the triangles, and tell me if they are congruent. Okay, so if you're still writing, fine. This is all you need to do. A, B, C, however you wrote it, it doesn't matter. Just make sure D, E, F is in the same order, okay? D, E, F. All right, just to show you on the side here, I'll do it a little bit differently. A, B, C, and then D, E, F. You should get the same answer as long as everything's in the right order. All right, so angle A and angle D. Angle A and angle D. Angle A and angle D. Angle C and angle F. That's the second one, so it gets 2 marks. Angle C and angle F. And then side AC and DF. Side AC and DF. So as long as you have the right order, you can see the exact same type of setup. So, are they congruent? If so, how? How are they congruent? Andrew? Angle, side, angle. So, angle, side, angle means that the side has to be between your two angles. And that side is between the two angles. All right, and so is that one. So, angle, side, angle. That's all you'd have to write. So, these types on the quiz, if you can see it right away and you just write angle, side, angle, what does that take you? 2 seconds? And then you move to the next problem. All right? Let's do another one. Angle B is congruent to angle E. Angle C is congruent to angle F. And AC is congruent to DE. Okay, again, just draw generic triangles. ABC, DEF. B and E are congruent. C and F. And then AC and DE. Okay? So, are they congruent? How many people say yes? How many people say no? Right, so they're in the wrong positions, right? So your AC should be with DF, and it's not. Now, again, please get this in your head. They could be congruent. You just can't prove it. Okay, that should help you when you're doing this. They look congruent. They got to be congruent. Don't do that. All right. This was on your homework last night. Let's do this one. So L, K, N, and M. So you have your givens. Okay, those two angles. And you should also draw them separately just so you can kind of see what they look like. So L, M, K, this is K, and an M. So L and N are congruent. That's part of your given. Angle M and angle K are congruent. Now, you should always check for parallel lines. You don't have any. You should check for vertical angles, which you do have vertical angles, but those angles are not in the two main triangles you're looking at. So, yeah, you can mark those, but that isn't going to help you in the two triangles that you're using, okay? And then the next thing is reflexive. Is there anything reflexive? Is there anything in this triangle that's shared with that triangle? Yeah, isn't KM and KM the same? Did I mark that wrong here? Let's see, K to M. No, that's right, and M to K. So what you would say then is KM, and that goes the other direction, the other triangle is MK. And that's reflexive. And then we can mark it. Mark it in the big triangle, mark it in each of those. And then are those, after every statement, say, can I prove these? Can those two triangles on the right be congruent? If so, then you say why. So triangle LKM, and do it in the right order, is congruent to, let's see, I did LKM, so I need to do NMK. Why are they congruent, everybody? You have angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. That was 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. That was all that was. You had your givens, so you didn't have to think about that. This part should be automatic. That's what you're proving. So you really only had 3 blanks to fill in. All right? But if you didn't have this, you couldn't solve it. So you do have to recognize the most important piece of the proofs. All right. Let's prove. This is from 5.6. You have 2 triangles. Okay. And you have some parallel lines. And let's see, NQM, NQM, and MPL. And we have right angles. Given and is midpoint of NL, and it shows the parallel part and the perpendicular stuff. So that's all listed in there as the given. So again, we look for vertical angles. We don't have any of those. We look for reflexive property. There isn't anything overlapping. That's really what you're looking for. Anything on top of something else. So you don't have vertical angles, you don't have reflexive property, and then you look for parallel lines. And usually it's alternate interior angles that you're looking at, but that doesn't exclude alternate exterior angles. It doesn't exclude consecutive interior or consecutive exterior, okay? So typically you're using alternate interior angles. So we do notice we have parallel lines. Okay, that's what these symbols mean, parallel lines. And so we need to look for a transversal. So we have parallel lines cut by this transversal right here. Okay, you also have the bottom line is also transversal. So let's do one at a time. So based on what I have here, the 2 parallel lines cut by transversal, what do you know? So let me draw it over here like this. 2 parallel lines cut by this transversal. So you have an interior angle there, and corresponding wise it would be here, but you don't have anything down below the picture, so that doesn't work. Alternate interior angle, so interior angle there at P, and then interior angle here, except that's not part of your picture, right? So that didn't help you. So let's draw another transversal. this bottom line is a transversal here. So let's redraw what I have there. So you have two parallel lines cut by this transversal at the bottom. So here we have L and M. These two angles are corresponding angles, aren't they? Corresponding angles are equal. Those two are corresponding angles. You can see it down here better than you can in the picture. Does everybody see that those are corresponding angles? Okay? So you got to write that down then, and I don't know if we're going to use it, but we probably are. So angle QMN is congruent to angle PLM by corresponding angles theorem. This is why you're supposed to remember each of the theorems. All right, so now we have two angles listed. We have the right angles and we have those two angles. Okay? Is there anything else? What does midpoint mean? Noah?
Segment NM and ML are equal to?
Yeah, so if they're equal, they're also congruent. So we're going to say NM is congruent to ML definition of midpoint. Okay, so now we can count that. Mark it on your picture. So now you have a side. You have two angles and a side. So now looking at the picture, do we have enough information to show that the two triangles are congruent? Aiden? What is it?
I don't know the word.
Okay, so here's how you do it. You do them in order. You have an angle, you have a side, and an angle. So
Same.
triangle QMN is now congruent to triangle PLM, angle, side, angle. I haven't looked at this one yet. This was part of your homework problems. See if you remember it. QRS. And a side, two angles. Oops, I drew that. It's drawn upside down. And we have V, W, or excuse me, X, W, and V. Okay, so the problem in the book was saying they gave you an answer of what the person said was the their response. So let me just ask you, without showing you what they did, are these two triangles congruent? And if so, all you got to do is say why. All right, Coley. Angle, angle, side. So you see angle, angle, side. All right, so you have two angles and then one of the sides. The question is the side in the correct position? It's after the single arc. So this one goes angle, angle, side. So it's after the single arc. So yeah, all you'd have to do to answer this is angle, angle, side. And then you move on to the next problem.
Can I switch?
All right, they were trying to say that it was angle, side, angle in the book. So obviously, if you say angle, side, angle, just as a refresher, that's what we're doing. The side has to be between the two angles. And that's definitely not what is there. All right, if it was angle, side, angle, you'd have to use QS because this side is attached to the two angles, and XV would be attached to the two angles. Carson?
How many questions will the quiz be?
So if one was angle, angle, side, and the other one was angle, side, angle, obviously you could not prove it. So let me draw that. So we'll use the first one here. The first one's QRS is angle, angle, side. So if we did angle, side, angle, okay, you can't say the two are congruent. They don't have enough information in both that overlaps the other one. Okay? So you'd say, you can say this, not enough information tomorrow, NEI. They could be congruent, but there's not enough information to prove it.
Will
And
there
that,
ever be any problems that have that answer?
yes. Well, I haven't made the quiz, but on the former quizzes and tests, yes, there were some that were NEI. And you have to be confident in what it is. Okay? And they have to be exact. All right, let's do this one. Draw the picture. Oops, nope, that part's not right. It overlaps like that. All right, the given. Nothing's marked in the picture, so you're gonna have to mark it. AC is congruent to BD. AB is perpendicular to AD. And CD is perpendicular to AD. And we're trying to prove that triangle BAD is congruent to triangle CDA. All right, so go ahead and mark your picture. Okay, so what I've added here is I split the triangles apart, pulled them apart, and you should do that too if you're doing a proof, and have both pictures in front of you, all right? The next thing I did is I added this to refresh your memory. These are the three things you should always look for. Not that there couldn't be anything else, but those are the typical ones we need to see. All right, so let's mark our givens. It says that AC is congruent to BD. So AC, in the top right, is congruent to BD. So that's the first, so that gets one hash mark. And then it says AB is perpendicular to AD. AB and AD are perpendicular. So you put a right angle there. And then also the CD is perpendicular to AD. All right, so in both pictures, we have those marked except for the hypotenuses there. And yes, the BD and CA are hypotenuses because it's across from your 90 degrees. All right, so right off the bat, you think of all the things, these three things, and also, do you think they're congruent before you start? So I see hypotenuse. I'm thinking maybe this is going to be a hypotenuse leg problem. So if there's a way to prove that these two are congruent, one of the legs, that'd be great. And then I start to look at this stuff, the vertical angles, reflexive, and parallel lines. I don't have any parallel lines, so that doesn't work. I do have a bunch of vertical angles here, but again, these vertical angles are not going to help you in here. Those angles aren't a part of the pictures when you pull them apart. So that's not going to work. That leaves checking reflexive. Is there anything overlapping? Carson. AC and BD, they overlap, but when I'm talking about reflexive, I mean overlapping mean they're on top of each other. The exact same lines.
A and D.
Yeah, AD is on top of AD from one to the other. And they're actually marked there. So let's mark in the picture. This is your second side that's congruent. So since we've marked it, put it in your proof. AD is congruent to DA reflexive property. And now, if I look at my pictures here, do I have enough information? If you say yes, then you just have to give the reason why. Why are they congruent? Well, I found the other leg I wanted for a hypotenuse leg. In a right triangle, if I have the hypotenuse and one of the legs, then the two triangles are congruent. So all you'd have to do is say hypotenuse leg. So you needed that line and the hypotenuse leg. That's all you had to do. Next problem. Let's write these two pictures. They look like they are congruent, but we have to be able to prove it. So some things they gave us. KL is congruent to OP. Angle K is congruent to angle O. Okay, so prove that JKL is congruent to NOP by angle side angle. So it's asking you, right now you can't prove it. It's saying what is needed. What is needed to prove angle side angle? So go ahead and write down what you think is needed. Okay, so let's mark it. KL is congruent to OP, and angle K is congruent to angle O. So we need angle side angle. So we have an angle and we have a side. So don't choose that angle. If you choose angle J, that would be angle side. So you got to do these in order. So angle side angle, it has to be L. All right, that's the second angle. So you say angle L must be congruent to angle side angle P. That's what's needed. Got it? Good. Okay, so what you're supposed to do is decide which triangle is congruent to triangle QNP and why. All right, so the first one has to be hypotenuse leg, which does not work, and neither do any of the others, okay? In this MKL, you have an angle, a side, and a side, which you cannot use angle side side. It has to be hypotenuse leg. Yeah, so that, since that's all that's in that picture, you can't use it. There's nothing else to say that they're congruent. Even if you had the same angle, side, and side in the main picture. Remember, it has to be a right angle for angle, side, side to work, and you have to say hypotenuse leg. So right off the bat, those are the only possibilities, and you can't use that. Going to ABC, we have a right angle. We don't know about the hypotenuse. And we have each of these sides, but we only have one of the sides in the parent picture that matches it. But we do have this angle and that angle. So in the main picture, compared to these two, we have angle, side, angle. Those are the only three things that match in this picture. Angle, side, angle. You'd like to say side, angle, side, but you don't have that side here. So you have to match them up exactly. So angle, side, angle would be this one. That matches by angle, side, angle. And then you look at the next picture, the last picture. So everybody take a second to see if you picked up on it. Okay? So, I mean, what you could do if you struggle with it is you could go through everything. We started with side, angle, side. We had side, side, side. Hypotenuse leg. Angle, side, angle. And angle, angle, side. You could go through each one individually. So let's just look at side, angle, side to start with. So here we have side, angle, side. So the 90 degree is still an angle, so you can use that as your angle, side, angle, side. Does this match with what you have over here, except you don't have NP? So you can't use side, angle, side. You have all three sides here, but you don't have all three sides in the parent function. So that doesn't work. So I'm trying to help you, those of you who are struggling what to do in each one, okay? Go to hypotenuse leg.
Wait, why can't you use side?
Because you do not have NP.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you got to ask. That's good. Then we go to hypotenuse leg. You have a hypotenuse, and you have both legs in this triangle. you have the hypotenuse and that leg. Okay, so that matches this one. Hypotenuse and that leg. Hypotenuse and that leg. They both have right angles. That was the first thing. So that answer would be yes by hypotenuse leg. Okay? And you could, just to continue that for practice, what about angle, side, angle? You do have, well, you only have one angle here. So you couldn't use angle, side, angle. And you can't use angle, angle, side because you only have one angle. The only one left was the hypotenuse leg. And if that didn't work, then you would say no, like you did on those. You'd cross them out. All right, so both these two would be the answer.
So on like the quiz, it'll have like multiple answers, or?
I've seen this type of question on the test. This takes a little bit longer, so it probably won't be on the quiz. We try to make your quizzes 20 to 30 minutes and your tests, 30 to 45 minutes. So if we put something like this on the quiz, I'd just give you two options. Okay? So you're looking to see if these two are congruent. If you think they are, you write down why they are and give the explanation if you have to add anything to it. If you don't think they are, you say not enough information. NEI. Okay?
You have to put a reason after that, or no?
Oh, if there's not enough information, you don't need to say why. If you think there is, then say why. If something needs to be added, you got to give the reason for that as well.
Can I try to answer this?
Yeah.
I think it's yes, because it's reflexive or something like that.
Okay.
Right? I think.
What were you asking?
Be side, 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 because B and C.
Reagan, what?
Because B and
What were
C
you
are reflective.
asking?
Are the two triangles congruent?
Yes, because B and C are.
So you need to
They're
say
side
it.
by side.
You need to say it like this. BC is congruent to CB, reflexive property, and then you say side, side, side. This is all you would have to put on the quiz or the test. And then you move on. Okay, if you just said side, 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 and you didn't tell me the reflexive, that's a half a point. Okay?
You know, it's side by side.
Side, side, side.
BC is congruent to itself. It's BC in the left triangle is the same as BC in the right triangle. So it has to be congruent to itself. So there's your third side. All right, you need to go back? Okay, so QPR you say is congruent to TPS vertical angles. So you'd say that. Angle QPR is congruent to angle TPS vertical angles.
Does it matter what order we put the angle?
What?
Does it matter what order we put the angle, or no?
You mean the letters?
Yeah.
P needs to be in the middle.
Okay.
That'll be good enough for me for now. I mean, you really need to try to make the order correct, but all right. So you have then the next thing you say, he said it right. Side, angle, side. So you have a side, an angle, and a side. Side. Notice the order to help you with that question. The single hash marks here from Q to P. So QP, and then single hash marks here from T to P. So I put TP first here. So angle, side, or side, angle, side. All right, one thing they did on the question, the actual question they put in here, is they said, can you prove it with just the information marked if I said angle Q is congruent to angle T? Oops. Angle Q is congruent to angle T. So disregard this stuff. If you only had marked angle Q and angle T and those hash marks, can you prove, is that enough to prove that they're congruent?
No.
No, you'd have to have the vertical angles. Okay? Again, that's just all part of it, seeing what they give you and what they have, okay? Okay, so you gotta say what triangles are congruent, why, and how you got it, okay? All right, so let's revisit some things that I've been talking about. You always check for vertical angles. We just did that in the last one. You always check for reflexive pieces, and you always check for parallel lines. And if you have parallel lines, look for alternate interior angles, corresponding angles. Okay, so
We have
among
just reflexive.
reflexive means,
And there's a reflection.
so if you pull your two pictures out that you're looking at, so let's do that. So I'm going to take JKM out, JKM, and then I'll have KML, KML. Reflexive means that the two sides or the two angles are exactly on top of each other. They are exactly the same thing. So,
Okay, so then why wasn't the one before it reflexive?
all right, so KM in the right triangle is the same as KM in the left triangle. So that's why this in the middle here is reflexive. So you say KM is congruent to MK, reflexive property. So you mark that. That's the second side that's congruent, so it's 2 hash marks.
The only one that kind of threw me off for some reason was the angle one. I don't know why.
The 90 degrees.
Yeah.
The second you have 90 degrees, let's see, we have side angle side, side side side, hypotenuse leg, angle side angle, and angle angle side. So right off the bat, if you see 90 degrees, you should be, that's what you should check first. Okay? But remember that it's not always hypotenuse leg. But that's what you should check first. So do we have a hypotenuse and a leg?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have the 90 degrees here. We have both hypotenuses, and now we have both legs. So you would say triangle, well, in this picture, you just say hypotenuse leg. That's the answer you would give. That's a crazy picture.
Bless you. Yeah, okay. I'm done.
I'm gonna fix this people.
This is why you should tear your pictures apart and write them separately. So you see these two pictures. I noticed that I have, I missed something here. There's two. I noticed that I have in this triangle here, let's draw this outside of it. So immediately I'm looking at a isosceles triangle. You have the converse to the base angles theorem. If your base angles are the same, then these two sides are the same. Not that you need that, but that's something you should know. And I have angle, angle, side here. All right, so now I'm going to take this big triangle, the same size, hopefully, and I'm going to rewrite it to look like this bottom one. So how do I know where to put everything? So I see the double hash mark here. That's from V to W. All right, so there's a double hash mark. So let's go R to T. Okay, so that means V is right there. And we have T and V being the same. All right, so now, are they congruent?
Yes.
Why?
Angle goes high.
Yeah, and you wouldn't need to do anything else. You don't need to say anything else. Because you don't need to mark anything. It's already marked. Angle, angle, side. So this is a great example of maybe it's best to pull your pictures apart. And you don't have to rotate it. You could have just left it in that position, but separated them, okay? All right. Okay, so here you have two triangles. Look for the three things I told you and go from there.
So we'll have to memorize it.
Okay? So we see we have parallel sides. So parallel lines. You have lots of transversals here, guys. But the main one is the diagonal. So what can you look at? So we're looking for either alternate interior angles, which is usually what we use. Corresponding angles, which in a former one, if you're watching the video, we use corresponding angles, so that is a possibility. Also consecutive, but that means you know the supplementary angles. Okay, so let's look for alternate interior angles. So name your angles that you think are the same. Yes.
AD and DA always. So
AD and DA? Okay, so he started with a reflexive part. So we're using the reflexive piece as we're starting. So we can mark that one. AD is congruent to DA. Good. Now what about the parallel lines and the transversal? What two angles can you say, if any, are congruent?
Angle.
Three letters for, C and B.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, they're already marked.
okay.
Okay, that's fine. You got those. The ones that I'm talking about, the things that aren't marked. Go ahead, Garrett.
Wouldn't it be CDA and BDA?
BDA is right here.
Okay, so then it'd be ADB, ABD, or AC, or AA.
This is correct so far.
Wow. Would it be ADB? Or DB?
Somebody help him out. BAD, right here.
Wow.
I don't know which way to go.
Well, you have to go from one parallel line to the other.
What is it, B and D? Oh, I thought you was.
No. BD is not parallel. It could be, but you don't know it. You haven't proven it yet. Okay? So the two that are marked, that's what we're looking at. So we're looking at these two intersections here. Okay? So you have alternate interior angles, so you would say that. Angle BAD is congruent to angle CDA. Alternate interior angles.
No, you got angle side, No.
No. You didn't do this part. AC and DB, that's not marked.
How you got angle on the side?
Yeah, so you got a couple different ways you could say it. Angle, angle, side. You could have said angle, angle, side that way. So either way, the next thing is angle, angle, side.
Wait, so hang on. Where did that come from?
What?
The ACDB.
That was given.
Oh.
That was when I first wrote the problem.
Oh.
They hadn't marked it yet. So you got to be careful that you look at your givens, make sure it's marked.
Okay.
All right.
Angle on the side.
What's been given has been marked. Take your time and write out the other ones, the other pieces. So you have your givens, you have your proof statement, fill in what's needed. So again, if you're struggling, this is for the people who are struggling. You're always looking for reflexive, you're looking for vertical angles, and you're looking for parallel lines for alternate interior angles, corresponding angles, and so on. All right, so out of those three things, those of you who are struggling, let's start with reflexive. Is there anything shared from one triangle to the other?
JL and LJ.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. JL and LJ. So write it down. JL
Just longer.
is congruent to LJ.
Sounds like it's glitchy.
Reflexive. After every time that you write something, mark it, stop, and say, now do I have enough information? You could keep going on some things, certain problems, but if you can say it at this point, then stop. So are the two triangles congruent? Okay, then you don't need anything else. All you needed was that, and why are they congruent?
Side, side, side.
Side, side, side. All right, last one. All right, so those are your givens. You're trying to prove whether or not there's enough information to show those two triangles, triangle XYV and triangle WVY. So like in other parts of the video, anytime you have overlapping pictures, you should separate them and look at both sets. So XYV is this triangle to the left. Okay. And then you have the triangle on the right, which is WYV. And then make sure you mark both pictures. So the first part here, the two angles XVY and WYV. So in the big picture, that's hard to see. All right, so we're really talking about those two angles in the upper right. And then you have XYV, which is the small value here. It's the second one, so we give it 2 arcs. And WVY. Okay, so now do you have enough information, or can you prove that you can get enough information? And if so, why are they congruent? You should be thinking of reflexive. You should be thinking of vertical angles. And also parallel lines. If you have parallel lines, you should be thinking alternate interior angles, corresponding angles. Okay, so those are the 3 things to start you out. Not just those 3. Those are just the things that we use most often in this chapter, okay? So look at those things and see what you got. Good. So we can cross out vertical angles. We do have a lot of vertical angles. And there's another example like this in the other part of the video. But these angles aren't in our actual triangles. Okay, they'd be in the middle of this line right here. So that's not going to work. And we don't have any parallel lines. So that doesn't work. Now we look at reflexive. And again, reflexive is one line or angle on top of another line or angle. So what do we have there? If you notice, you have VY and VY right there. Well, obviously VY and VY have to be equal. And look, VY is on top of VY in the picture. So that's reflexive. So you would say VY is congruent to YV, and you'd say reflexive, okay? And then mark it. That's our first side, so it gets 1 hash mark. And then after every thing you do, each thing, you look to see if that's enough information, because you could probably go through and make some other factual points. I mean, we could have listed all these vertical angles, but they're not necessary, okay? So after every line, look to see if it's enough information. Kale, is there enough information? Okay, so why?
Angle VY is congruent with YV because it's reflexive.
Yes, I said that.
Triangle XYV is congruent with triangle WVY because of angle side angle.
Yeah, angle, side, angle. You have angle, side, and angle. Now, if you just said angle, side, angle, and you did not give the reflexive part, you do not get full credit.
You get half.
Partial credit, yeah. Okay, now, if you didn't have it marked, anything marked on there, and you said angle, side, angle, I'm not going to give you any credit, because there's nothing showing that you saw that it's angle, side, angle. The test and quiz is there for you to show me what's going on in your brain. All right? So make sure you write all that stuff down. All right, next problem. So let's do that triangle, A, B, C, and D. So mark down, is there enough information, not enough information? If there is, say why. If you have to add something, explain it. All right, what'd you think? Ready?
If you do AC is equal to CA, you have a reflexive theorem. You get a side.
Yes, it is reflexive. And in this one, really it's AC and AC. You didn't have to change the order. If you notice, it goes through the single hash mark through the double hash mark, and then this one down here goes through the single hash mark and through the double hash mark. So AC is in the same position as AC. It's okay if you said AC is congruent to CA. I'm just making sure you understand that in this example, really it should be AC is congruent to AC. All right, I'm not going to be looking at that so much, but it's not proper to have rearranged it. Okay. So anyway, yeah, it's reflexive. So you mark it, and then you said triangle ABC is congruent to triangle, oops, ADC. Notice A and C in the same positions here. So side, side, side. Who got that right? Good. And P, Q, R, T, and S. All right, so it says that PT is perpendicular to SQ. So we have these 90-degree lines. Definition of perpendicular lines would be 90 degrees. So you got a perpendicular line, which means you have 90 degrees. And R is the midpoint of PT. And ST is congruent to PQ. All right, so everything's marked, and you have some information there. Can you show the two triangles? Can you prove they're congruent? If so, how? And if you need anything extra, make sure you write it down.
I'm still in this class.
All right, what does midpoint mean?
The distance between 1 and 2 points.
Yeah, it makes one segment divided evenly into two segments. Two congruent segments. That's what you want to say. It makes two congruent segments. All right, so what you would say is PR is congruent to RT. Definition of midpoint. And then mark it. And then you, after each statement, you say, is there enough information? If not, then you look for other things. Is there enough information, yes or no? Okay, you still have the hypotenuse and that leg, and the hypotenuse and that leg. So yeah, you're gonna say the midpoint, definition of midpoint part, and then you say triangle PQR is congruent to triangle TSR. Whoa. TSR. And why? Hypotenuse leg. Okay, you guys realize you're doing proofs every time you do this. Watch. Given. All that stuff that's up there. You just told me the definition of midpoint. And then there's your proof statement with the reason. You're doing proofs every single time you answer the question. All right, moving on. All right, looks like a paper airplane. Okay. And we have A, B, C, and D. And the given part, angle A is congruent to angle C. And then it says DB bisects angle ABC. The reflexive part, DB, is congruent to, let me see here, DB. Reflexive. All right, and so we can mark that. That's the first one. Anything else? Because right now you don't have enough information that's marked. But you do have your given piece you've not touched. What does the word bisector mean?
Splits in half.
Okay, midpoint means it gives you two congruent segments. Bisector gives you two congruent
Shapes.
angles. Isn't a bisector bisecting an angle in this? It's bisecting an angle, so it makes it into two congruent angles. So angle ABD is congruent to angle CBD. definition of bisector. Okay? So we can mark that, and that's the second angle, so we use 2 arcs for showing those two. And now we have enough. Triangle ABD is congruent to triangle CBD. Why? What? That was a lot. Wait a minute, it wasn't a lot. You have 3 things there.
A lot for your brain.
You actually only have 2 things.
Have.
That's 1 and 2. At that point, you should know what the answer is. All right?
I didn't write anything.
The given, don't complain about the given, and don't complain about the proof statement. Last one. Ugh. Parallel lines. And you have that side and that side. It's K, L, O, M, and N. Okay, so we have all those givens. Again, you always check for reflexive, parallel lines, so alternate interior angles, and vertical angles. So off the bat, I see vertical angles here. So I can say those 2 angles are congruent. So angle KOL is congruent to angle MON. Vertical angles. Then I also see parallel lines. So parallel lines, oh, these a little bit bigger. Cut by a transversal. Alternate interior angles. So now we have angle LKO is congruent to angle NMO. Alternate interior angles. So we have the angle, we have the side, and another angle. So triangle LKO is congruent to triangle NMO. Angle, side, angle. So let's clean that up a little bit. Oh, I don't want that. Whatever. There you go. Angle, side, angle. We good?